Welcome back to the channel, everyone. Please remember to tap like and hit subscribe so that we can continue to provide you great content. Ladies and gentlemen, fasten your seatbelts as we embark on a high-speed journey through the illustrious history of Bugatti automobiles. From the early 20th century to the present day, Bugatti has been synonymous with luxury, performance, and the occasional need for a speeding ticket attorney. Let's explore each model, its specifications, and sprinkle in some humor along the way. The Bugatti Type 13, 1910-1920, was the car that started it all, laying the foundation for Bugatti's legendary reputation in the automotive world. It was Ettore Bugatti's first true production car, and despite its small size and modest power output compared to modern hypercars, the Type 13 was an engineering marvel for its time. Powered by a 1.3-liter inline-4 engine, the earliest versions of the Type 13 produced around 15 horsepower, which might sound laughable today. But back in the 1910s, it was enough to make it one of the fastest lightweight race cars around. Later models, including the Type 13 Brescia, saw power increase to 30 to 40 horsepower, allowing for speeds of up to 78 km/h, 48 mph, which, in the early 20th century, felt like light speed on the rickety, unpaved roads of the time. What truly set the Type 13 apart was its innovative design and exceptional handling. While other manufacturers were building large, heavy, and often cumbersome vehicles, Bugatti took a different approach, focusing on lightweight construction, precision engineering, and aerodynamics, a philosophy that would define the brand for over a century. The Type 13's chassis was compact and nimble, making it a dominant force in motorsports. One of its biggest achievements came in 1921 at the Brescia Grand Prix, where Bugatti's Type 13s finished first, second, third, and fourth, completely embarrassing the competition. As a result, later versions of the Type 13 were nicknamed Brescia in honor of this legendary performance. This race also marked the first time a car with 4 valves per cylinder won a major event, proving Bugatti's cutting-edge engineering. The car's signature horseshoe-shaped radiator, a design element still found on modern Bugattis, made its first appearance on the Type 13, solidifying its place as an icon. Though it lacked the raw power of later Bugattis, the Type 13 was all about finesse. It was light, agile, and well-balanced, the perfect car for those who believed that driving should be an art form rather than just brute force. Despite its racing pedigree, it was also surprisingly comfortable and well-crafted, a trait that would become a hallmark of Bugatti's philosophy, blending performance with luxury. While the world has moved on to Bugattis with 1,500 horsepower quad-turbo W16 engines, the Type 13 remains one of the most important cars in automotive history. Without it, there would be no Veyron, no Chiron, and certainly no Bugatti dominating the hypercar world today. It may not have been the fastest car ever built, but in many ways, it was the most significant. Proof that a tiny, well-engineered car with an ambitious vision can leave a legacy that lasts over a century. The Bugatti Type 35, 1924-1930, wasn't just a race car. It was the race car. If there was an automotive hall of fame for legendary machines, which honestly there should be, the Type 35 would be inducted on the first ballot. This sleek, lightweight, and absurdly fast for its time vehicle was Ettore Bugatti's masterpiece, setting the standard for what a proper racing car should be. Powered by a 2.0-liter inline-8 engine, the Type 35 originally produced 90 horsepower, which may not sound like much today, but in the 1920s, this thing was basically the Formula One car of its era. Later versions, like the Type 35B, cranked up the power to 140 HP thanks to a supercharger, making it even more of a beast on the track. And when I say on the track, I mean dominating the track. This car won over 1,000 races, making it one of the most successful racing cars in history. Imagine being a competitor in the 1920s, showing up to a Grand Prix with your car only to see a fleet of Type 35s rolling in. At that point, you might as well just pack up and go home. One of the reasons the Type 35 was such a powerhouse was its ridiculously lightweight design. Coming in at just 750 kilograms, 1,660 pounds. Ettore Bugatti believed in performance through lightness, and this car proved him right. The chassis was crafted from lightweight alloys, the hollow front axle saved weight, and even the wheels were made from aluminum, making it one of the first race cars to use lightweight alloy wheels. This car was on a strict keto diet before keto was even a thing. The aerodynamics were also ahead of their time, with the iconic horseshoe-shaped radiator helping airflow and keeping the engine cool. Speaking of engines, the inline-8 in the Type 35 had a unique roller-bearing crankshaft, which helped it rev higher and last longer than its competitors. So while other cars were breaking down mid-race, the Type 35 just kept going like an early version of the Energizer Bunny. But here's the kicker. The Type 35 wasn't just a race car for professional drivers. Wealthy enthusiasts could buy one and race it themselves. Kind of like if Ferrari started selling F1 cars to the public today, which, let's be honest, would be a terrible idea for traffic safety. This meant that not only was the Type 35 winning races on the big stage, but rich daredevils were also taking them to hill climbs, street races, and probably terrorizing pedestrians in Monaco. The price? A whopping 200,000 francs at the time, which today would be the equivalent of more money than most people will ever see in their lifetime. One of the most famous victories of the Type 35 came at the 1926 Grand Prix World Championship, where it absolutely obliterated the competition. It also dominated the Targa Florio, an infamously brutal endurance race held on the mountain roads of Sicily. And if you think modern endurance racing is tough, imagine racing for over 300 miles on dirt roads, with no guardrails, in a car that doesn't have seatbelts. Drivers of the Type 35 didn't just have skill, they had nerves of steel and life insurance premiums through the roof. Despite its racing success, the Type 35 wasn't just a track monster. It was also drop-dead gorgeous. Bugatti had a habit of making cars that looked like they belonged in an art museum, and the Type 35 was no exception. Its flowing bodywork, delicate spoked wheels, and sleek proportions made it look fast even when standing still. If you ever see one today at a vintage car show, don't be surprised if it's surrounded by a small crowd of drooling gearheads who whisper to themselves, "They don't make them like this anymore." Even after its official racing days were over, the Type 35 continued to inspire future Bugattis. The design philosophy, lightweight, powerful, and ridiculously good-looking, has been carried forward to modern Bugattis like the Chiron and Bolide. But let's be real. No matter how fast and powerful Bugatti gets in the modern era, nothing will ever match the sheer swagger of the Type 35. It was the ultimate race car of its time, a technological marvel, and the undisputed king of the Grand Prix circuit. If the car had a theme song, it would have been the Rocky soundtrack on repeat. Simply put, the Bugatti Type 35 wasn't just ahead of its time, it defined its time. The Bugatti Type 41, Royale, 1927 to 1933, wasn't just a car. It was a rolling palace on wheels, a vehicle so absurdly luxurious that it made even the most extravagant Rolls-Royces look like budget rental cars. Designed by Ettore Bugatti for royalty, hence the name Royale, this behemoth was meant to be the ultimate status symbol, the automotive equivalent of wearing a crown made of diamonds while drinking champagne from a gold-plated goblet. The Royale was powered by an absolutely monstrous 12.7-liter inline-8 engine, producing 300 horsepower, an insane figure for the 1920s. To put that in perspective, that engine was so powerful that Bugatti later repurposed it for use in trains. Because when your car engine is too big, why not power an entire locomotive with it? The Royale stretched over 6.4 meters, 21 feet in length, and weighed over 3 tons, making it longer than a Cadillac Escalade and heavier than an elephant in a tuxedo. With a top speed of 205 kilometers, 127 miles/hour, it wasn't just big, it was fast. Though you had to be a brave or insanely rich person to push a car this size to triple-digit speeds. Despite its engineering brilliance, the Royale wasn't exactly a commercial success. Largely because Bugatti launched it during the Great Depression, a time when most people were struggling to afford food, let alone a car that cost more than an entire mansion. Ettore Bugatti had planned to sell the Royale exclusively to monarchs and aristocrats, but there was just one small problem. Even royalty thought it was too expensive. Only 6 Royales were ever built, and of those, only 3 were sold to actual customers. The others remained with Bugatti, either gathering dust or being used for personal use, which, honestly, is the biggest flex in automotive history. Owning luxury cars that even kings couldn't afford. One of the most famous Royales, the Type 41 Coupe Napoleon, was actually Ettore Bugatti's personal car, and he used it like his daily driver. Imagine pulling up to the grocery store in a 21-foot-long, custom-built masterpiece while everyone else is parking their tiny Citroens. Now that's confidence. Each Royale featured a unique custom body, built by the most prestigious coach builders of the era. No two Royales looked exactly alike, and the attention to detail was insane. The interiors were decked out with the finest wood, leather, and silk, and the door handles were literally made of ivory. Because why use chrome when you can flex with actual elephant tusks? The signature Bugatti horseshoe grille was comically oversized, making the front end look like it could inhale pedestrians as it cruised past. The wheels were also massive, requiring special Michelin tires that were as thick as dinosaur bones. The Royale's most infamous non-sale happened when Bugatti tried to sell one to the King of Albania, who apparently turned it down. Now, when actual kings say, "Nah, that's a bit much," you've built something excessive. Another funny anecdote is that when World War II broke out, Bugatti hid two Royales by bricking them inside a barn to prevent them from being taken by the Germans. Because naturally, when you have priceless cars, the best way to store them is to pretend they don't exist. Today, the Royale is one of the rarest and most valuable cars in history. One example, the Kellner Coupe, sold for over $20 million, making it one of the most expensive classic cars ever auctioned. If a Royale were to hit the market today, it would likely fetch a price so high that even billionaires would need to check their bank balance before bidding. While Bugatti never got to mass-produce the Royale as intended, its legacy lived on. The modern Bugatti Veyron and Chiron inherited its spirit of unapologetic excess, proving that some things never change. The Royale remains the ultimate because-I-can car, a vehicle built for a world that wasn't quite ready for it. And honestly, that just makes it even cooler. The Bugatti Type 57, 1934 to 1940, wasn't just a car. It was a rolling work of art, a masterpiece that combined luxury, performance, and eye-watering beauty into one glorious package. Designed by Jean Bugatti, the son of the legendary Ettore Bugatti, the Type 57 was an evolution of Bugatti's earlier race cars, but with a greater focus on elegance and refinement. This was a Bugatti you could drive to a gala, park outside a five-star hotel, and still take to the racetrack on the weekend. Because nothing says sophistication like a car that can both cruise in style and leave competitors in the dust. Under the hood, the Type 57 packed a 3.3-liter inline-8 engine, delivering anywhere from 135 to 200 horsepower, depending on the model. While that might not sound like much today, remember, this was the 1930s, an era when most cars struggled to hit 50 mph without a strong tailwind. The Type 57, on the other hand, could easily reach 95 to 125 mph, meaning that if you were running late to an extravagant dinner party, you could make up for lost time very quickly. But let's talk about style, because the Type 57 was drop-dead gorgeous. Bugatti offered several versions, each more stunning than the last. The Type 57 Galibier was the luxury four-door version, perfect for aristocrats who needed to arrive in style but still bring their luggage. The Type 57 Ventoux was a sleek coupe, ideal for those who wanted to turn heads at every stoplight, or in this case, every gas lantern-lit street corner. But the real showstoppers were the Type 57 Atalante and the Type 57 NSC Atlantic, two of the most jaw-droppingly beautiful cars ever made. The Atlantic, in particular, looked like it had been sculpted by the gods of speed and elegance themselves, with its teardrop shape, riveted spine, and swooping curves that could make grown men weep. Only 4 Atlantics were ever built, and today they're worth north of $40 million, which means that if you ever see one in person, you should probably bow. Of course, the Type 57 wasn't just a pretty face. It also had serious racing credentials. The Type 57G Tank won the 1937 and 1939 24 Hours of Le Mans, proving that Bugatti wasn't just about elegance. It could also dominate on the track. The 1939 victory was particularly emotional, as Jean Bugatti himself had been deeply involved in the car's development. Tragically, later that same year, Jean Bugatti died in a crash while testing a Type 57C, cutting short the life of one of automotive history's greatest designers. If there's a car that best represents the golden age of Bugatti, it's the Type 57, a machine that was as fast as it was elegant, as beautiful as it was powerful, and as timeless as fine art. Today, owning one is like having the Mona Lisa in your garage, except with more horsepower and a much cooler sound. The Bugatti Type 73C is one of those cars that had the potential to be a legend, but instead became one of history's great what-ifs. Designed in the early 1940s as Bugatti's post-war race car, the Type 73C was meant to carry on the company's legacy of lightweight, high-performance vehicles, much like the Type 35 and Type 57G tank before it. However, due to World War II and the untimely death of Jean Bugatti in 1939, the project never reached full production, making it one of the rarest and most mysterious Bugattis ever built. The Type 73C was powered by a 1.5-liter inline-4 engine, which, at first glance, might not seem that impressive, especially compared to Bugatti's usual 8-cylinder and massive Royale engines. But this wasn't just any old 4-cylinder. It featured twin overhead camshafts and a lightweight chassis, making it a serious contender for Formula 2 racing. The original plan was to supercharge it, bumping the power output significantly, but Bugatti never got around to it before production was halted. In its naturally aspirated form, the engine produced around 110 horsepower, which was plenty for a car weighing less than a modern-day Miata. If Bugatti had followed through with its grand vision, the Type 73C could have dominated post-war racing and become the new benchmark for lightweight European race cars. Despite its potential, only 5 chassis were ever built, and only one Type 73C was fully completed as a race car. The others remained unfinished, like a half-written novel that was never published. Some of the surviving chassis were later converted into road cars, and a few were even fitted with completely different engines by collectors and restorers. It's almost as if fate didn't want the Type 73C to become a racing icon, but rather a whispered legend among Bugatti enthusiasts. The car had all the right ingredients: a lightweight chassis, advanced engine technology, and Bugatti's signature artistic yet functional design. But timing just wasn't on its side. Had it been completed and put into competition, it might have given brands like Ferrari and Maserati serious competition in the early 1950s. Instead, it remains a rare glimpse into what Bugatti might have been if history had unfolded differently. Today, finding an original Type 73C is about as easy as finding a unicorn wearing a racing helmet. And when they do surface, they're considered priceless pieces of automotive history. While Bugatti's legacy continued in different forms after the war, the Type 73C serves as a reminder of a path not taken. One where Bugatti might have ruled post-war racing just as it had dominated the 1920s and 1930s. The Bugatti Type 251, 1955 to 1956, was Bugatti's last-ditch effort to reclaim racing glory. But instead, it became a cautionary tale of how not to build a Formula 1 car. After World War II, Bugatti's dominance in motorsports had faded, and the once great marque found itself struggling to compete with the likes of Ferrari and Maserati. Enter the Type 251, Bugatti's first and only Formula 1 car, designed to bring the company back into the spotlight. The project was ambitious, spearheaded by Gioacchino Colombo, the same engineer who had worked on the Ferrari 125. Bugatti was serious about making a comeback, and with Colombo at the helm, hopes were high. The Type 251 featured a 2.5-liter straight-8 engine mounted transversely behind the driver, making it one of the first F1 cars with a mid-engine layout, an idea that would later become the gold standard for Formula 1. It produced around 230 horsepower, which was respectable for the era, and its sleek, cigar-shaped body gave it a futuristic look that was certainly ahead of its time. However, for all its innovation, the Type 251 was a complete disaster on the track. Despite Bugatti's best efforts, the car was heavy, unbalanced, and sluggish in corners, making it feel more like a high-speed boat than a cutting-edge race car. The car's torsion bar suspension didn't handle well, and its 4-speed gearbox made acceleration more of a suggestion than a reality. To make matters worse, Bugatti had barely tested the car before throwing it into an actual Grand Prix, a move that could be generously described as optimistic, and more realistically described as a terrible idea. The Type 251 made its first and only appearance at the 1956 French Grand Prix, driven by Maurice Trintignant, who must have had nerves of steel to get behind the wheel of a car that handled like a brick on roller skates. Unsurprisingly, the Type 251 was painfully slow. qualifying last and retiring after just 18 laps due to mechanical issues. It was an embarrassing failure, and Bugatti, already struggling financially, decided to abandon Formula One altogether. Thus, the Type 251 became Bugatti's first and last Formula One car, a rare footnote in the company's history that most people would rather forget. However, in hindsight, it wasn't a total failure. The mid-engine design, though poorly executed here, became the standard for all future F1 cars. If Bugatti had more time, more money, and maybe a little divine intervention, the Type 251 could have been a game changer. Instead, it became a museum piece, a beautiful but flawed example of a company trying to relive its past glory in a world that had already moved on. Today, only one Type 251 remains, housed at the Cité de l'Automobile Museum in France, where it serves as a reminder that even the greatest car manufacturers sometimes take a wrong turn. The lesson? If you're going to enter Formula One, maybe test the car first. The Bugatti EB110, 1991 to 1995, was the comeback kid of the automotive world. A car that resurrected the legendary Bugatti name after nearly 4 decades of silence, and did so with the subtlety of a fireworks display at a rock concert. This was Bugatti's first car of the modern era, and while it didn't quite reach the success of today's Bugatti hypercars, the EB110 paved the way for the brand's rebirth. The story of the EB110 started with Italian entrepreneur Romano Artioli, who bought the rights to the Bugatti name in the late 1980s, determined to bring the legendary French marque back to life. But instead of just building any old supercar, he wanted to create the most technologically advanced performance machine the world had ever seen. And well, he got pretty darn close. The EB110 was a marvel of engineering, boasting a 3.5-liter quad-turbocharged V12, all-wheel drive, and a carbon fiber chassis, which at the time was something only seen in Formula One cars. This beast of an engine pumped out 553 horsepower in the standard EB110 GT and 603 horsepower in the lighter, more aggressive EB110 SS Supersport, allowing it to rocket from 0-60 mph in just 3.2 seconds. Keep in mind, this was 1991, an era when most sports cars struggled to break the 5-second mark, so this thing was basically a time machine with scissor doors. The top speed? A blistering 221 miles, 355 Litcoin, making it the fastest production car in the world at the time, at least until a certain McLaren F1 came along and ruined the party. But let's talk about the design, because the EB110 was peak 90s supercar excess. It had pop-up headlights, scissor doors, and a wedge-shaped body that looked like it had been sketched by a 12-year-old car enthusiast with a love for sci-fi movies. And I mean that as a compliment. The interior was pure luxury, featuring leather, wood trim, and an air of exclusivity that made sure you knew you were sitting in something special. If the Lamborghini Diablo was the wild party animal supercar of the 90s, the EB110 was the sophisticated, high-tech genius that still knew how to have fun. Even Formula One legend Michael Schumacher bought one, because of course he did. What better endorsement does a car need? So, with all this innovation and performance, why didn't the EB110 become an all-time legend? Well, there was just one problem: bad timing. By the mid-1990s, a global economic downturn hit luxury automakers hard, and Bugatti was no exception. Despite the EB110's brilliance, sales never took off. And in 1995, Bugatti Automobili S.p.A. went bankrupt, which, let's be honest, is about as ironic as it gets. A company known for outrageous speed met an equally outrageous financial crash. To make matters worse, Artioli had overextended himself financially, even investing in Lotus at the same time, which turned out to be one risk too many. By 1998, the Bugatti brand was picked up by Volkswagen, leading to the modern Bugatti era we know today. Despite its short-lived production run, the EB110 remains one of the most important supercars ever built. It was the first true Bugatti of the modern era, the first production car with 4 turbochargers, and the first Bugatti to break the 200 mph barrier. Today, it's an ultra-rare collector's item, with surviving models selling for millions at auction. Which is funny, considering how hard they were to sell in the 90s. So, was the EB110 a failure? Not even close. It was ahead of its time, misunderstood in its era, and ultimately the foundation for everything Bugatti has achieved since. Without the EB 11010, there would be no Veyron, no Chiron, and no 300 mph record-breaking Bugattis. In a way, the EB 110 was like the cool underground band that only became famous after breaking up. And now, decades later, everyone realizes just how brilliant it really was. The Bugatti Veyron, 2005 to 2015, wasn't just a car. It was a science experiment with a gas pedal, a rocket ship disguised as a hypercar, and an engineering flex so ridiculous that even NASA probably took notes. When Volkswagen acquired Bugatti in 1998, they didn't just want to make a fast car. They wanted to obliterate every speed record on the planet while making sure the driver could still enjoy massaging leather seats and air conditioning at 250 mph. The result? The Bugatti Veyron 16.4, a car that looked like something a billionaire's 10-year-old son would sketch in crayon, but packed more mind-melting performance than any road-legal car had ever seen. Under the hood? Oh, just a casual 8.0-liter W16 engine, which, for those who don't speak mechanic, is basically two V8s glued together with pure horsepower and a bit of black magic. And if that wasn't overkill enough, Bugatti threw in 4 turbochargers because apparently 2 wasn't enough, and ended up with a staggering 1,001 horsepower in the standard model. 60 mph? A mind-blowing 2.5 seconds, which, fun fact, is faster than most people can say, I can't afford this car. But let's talk top speed, because that's where the Veyron truly broke the internet before breaking the tarmac. The standard Veyron topped out at 253 mph, 407 km/h, making it the fastest production car in the world when it debuted. And if that wasn't excessive enough, Bugatti later introduced the Veyron Supersport, which cranked up the horsepower to 1,200 and hit a record-breaking 267 mph, 431 km/h, a speed so absurd that the tires would explode if you tried to sustain it for too long. That's right. Bugatti made a car so fast, it had to be electronically limited for safety reasons, because physics was starting to feel personally attacked. But speed comes at a cost, and for the Veyron, that cost was literally everything. It had a base price of around $1.7 million. But that was just the beginning. A new set of tires? $40,000. Want those tires fitted on the special Bugatti-approved wheels? That'll be another $50,000, sir. And if you really went full send on a high-speed run, congratulations. You just drained the 26.4-gallon fuel tank in about 12 minutes. That's right. If you held full throttle, the Veyron was basically a jet fighter with a drinking problem. Despite the astronomical costs, the Veyron was surprisingly comfortable, proving that you could hit 250 mph while enjoying a quiet, air-conditioned ride. The interior was as luxurious as a private jet, with hand-stitched leather, polished aluminum, and enough buttons to make a fighter pilot jealous. And let's not forget the ridiculously over-engineered key system. Yes, the Veyron had 2 keys. The regular key limited the car to just 213 mph, but if you wanted to go full Bugatti lunatic mode, you had to insert the special top speed key, which lowered the car, adjusted the aerodynamics, and whispered to the laws of physics. Prepare yourselves. Over its 10-year production run, Bugatti built 450 Veyrons, including limited editions like the Veyron Grand Sport, convertible, and Veyron Supersport, the I have too much money and want to scare myself edition. While some critics called it excessive, over-engineered, and completely unnecessary, Bugatti responded with, yes, that was the point. The Veyron wasn't just a car, it was a statement, a technological masterpiece, and the ultimate flex in the world of hypercars. It rewrote the rulebook, proving that a luxury hypercar could also be a speed demon, and without it, there would be no Chiron, no bolide, and no modern-day Bugatti insanity. Today, the Veyron is still a legend, a car that exists somewhere between an engineering marvel and pure automotive lunacy. And if you ever see one on the road, just bow. You're in the presence of greatness. Finally, we have the super-fast Bugatti Chiron, 2016 present. The Bugatti Chiron 2016 present is the hypercar that took everything great about the legendary Veyron and dialed it up to mind-blowing levels. This mechanical masterpiece is powered by an 8.0-liter quad-turbocharged W16 engine that produces a jaw-dropping 1,479 horsepower, or 1,600 in the Supersport variant, making it one of the most powerful production cars in the world. With a 0 to 60 mph time of just 2.3 seconds, the Chiron accelerates faster than most people can process what's happening, and with a limited top speed of 261 km/h. Bottom 20 km/h. Because Bugatti engineers figured that going any faster might cause time travel, this beast is an engineering marvel. However, Bugatti did push the limits further in 2019 when a modified Chiron Supersport 300 Plus shattered records by reaching 304.777 ms, 490.48 km/h, making it the first production car to break the 300 mph barrier. With aerodynamics carefully sculpted for both high-speed stability and luxurious road presence, the Chiron isn't just a speed demon, it's a work of art. The interior is as extravagant as a five-star hotel lobby, with premium leather, polished aluminum, and high-tech digital displays that remind you that, yes, you are indeed sitting in a multi-million-dollar hypercar. Speaking of the price, owning a Chiron isn't just for the financially comfortable, it's for the financially untouchable, with a base price of $3 million. And that's before you start customizing the paint job, interior materials, or adding the gold-plated cup holders. Yes, that's an option. Bugatti even offers a sky view roof option, allowing lucky owners to gaze at the sky while speeding down the Autobahn, hopefully within legal limits. Despite its immense power, the Chiron is designed to be as smooth as a luxury sedan when needed, offering an effortless driving experience. Though let's be honest, no one buys a 1,500 horsepower car to cruise at 30 mph in traffic. The Chiron lineup has expanded over the years, introducing variants like the Chiron Sport, sharper handling, lighter weight, Chiron Per Sport, track-focused aerodynamics, and the Chiron Super Sport, long-tail design for extreme speed, each catering to different kinds of speed-obsessed billionaires. And let's not forget about fuel consumption. At full throttle, the Chiron drains its 100-liter, 26.4-gallon fuel tank in about 9 minutes, meaning that if you're planning a road trip, you better map out gas stations very carefully. While many hypercars focus purely on performance, the Chiron seamlessly blends luxury, speed, and exclusivity, solidifying its place as one of the most extraordinary automobiles ever created. Whether you see it as an engineering triumph, a millionaire's toy, or a rolling piece of modern art, one thing is for sure. When a Bugatti Chiron drives past, everyone notices. Please remember to subscribe for more great car content.